So last night I couldn't sleep, and
Well, that sounds like a song.
I know that it's not an uncommon problem. So, being a Dharma practitioner, I came out here and started reading from a classic in the literature of our tradition, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. And if you have not, because we have folks that have come into the class and into our circle of contacts doing this together, you may be unaware of this, not only this book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, but we don't often talk about how our practice is all through this lineage in the context of a course of study and practice called the Lam Rim, which is the stages. Lam is, I forget which is word, path, stages. I don't know
Yeah,
which
stages
word
of the path,
anymore.
that's what it means.
So Lam Rim, Lamrim is how it's spelled. And this is what we have every class that we've had with all the monks and nuns, and that Christopher's doing, all the texts that we're studying are all in the context of this greater umbrella known as the Lam Rim, and address, there are roughly 22 main points along the stages of the path to enlightenment, 22 sort of milestones that they have teased out, the Tibetans in our lineage have teased out and have sort of codified in this thing called the Lam Rim. And it's a wonderful tradition, and it gives us a way to navigate in sequential orders, sort of our path to happiness. So I just thought I'd mention that if you can't sleep, of course, the Lamas have always jokingly said the best way to sleep, if you can't sleep, is to start to read Dharma.
Yes, nothing puts
But I was
one to
reading on
sleep
the
like a
topic
duck.
of death and impermanence. And honestly, this book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, is kind of a fun read because it's so arcane in some ways, but it's still completely relevant in terms of the things we think and feel. Just the examples and the cultural context is completely different.
It's, you know what it is? It's a peek into the Tibetan culture before Western civilization got to it. So you're actually looking into a tradition that came out of medieval times. And it's fascinating from a cultural point of view to read Lan Rim as well.
It is actually for us, for we who have Geshe Nima as a teacher, by understanding the context within which he's coming, we are more likely to understand his intent. I think a lot of times, I know I've heard it happen with others, and I know it's quite common to try to make what he's saying fit into the cultural context within which we live. And so when he says things, we tend to think they're metaphoric, but in many cases, he's literally meaning what he's saying. And if you expose yourself to something like this, as I was reading last night, I was thinking, this is exactly the tradition that Geshe Nima is highly steeped in, is living within, and has no intention of poking his way out of it because it's a tried and true tradition. So anyway,
Well, and that's also what he's going to be teaching when he's coming here.
true.
Yeah.
True. Okay. With that in mind, because we want to be happy and we want to be the cause of others' happiness, we follow this Buddhist path that indicates that it is a way to make that happen. And so the lineage of teachers and the texts and their instructions to us, how to practice to achieve that happiness and altruistic ability, we take refuge in their teaching, their example, and the process. So let's start with taking refuge. Sangye chodam soki choknam la changchu padu dakni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gi pe sonam ki drola penshir sangye drupar sho. I failed to mention, as we repeat it 2 more times, visualize in front of you all these teachers and all this dharma, all these causes and conditions and sources of inspiration, knowledge, training, practices, the ones who are bringing to us the methods to achieve happiness and to bring that happiness to others. So imagine their help and guidance coming to you from a beautiful field of beings, pouring down 5 rainbow colors into you, into your heart, into your top of your head, into every pore of your body. And as it's pouring into you, you fill up and you similarly extend that out to all sentient beings. 2 more times. Sangye chodan soki choknam la changchu padu dakni kyapsuchi daki jin soki pe sonam ki drola penshir sangye drupar sho. Sangye chodam soki choknam la changchu padu dakni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gi pe sonam ki drola penshir sangye drupara sho. And picture all that blessing coming into you, reaffirming that this is the path you're on. And now giving rise to thoughts and intentions to be of assistance to all sentient beings that surrounding us. So picture your mother and father and all sentient beings around you, everyone with whom you've had contact, who've been very kind to you indirectly and directly, countless lifetimes, all surrounding us. Every kind of creature in every realm appearing as humans. And we bring them to mind with love in our hearts, wanting to be the cause for their happiness. So we say these 4 immeasurable thoughts with the intention to be the cause for this to take place in all sentient beings. So it's a motivational statement of what our intent is. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies, free from attachment to the things we cling on to, and aversion and hatred for the things that we don't like. And we, through our practice, will be the cause for these states to arise in all sentient beings. Then we're invoking the Buddhism bodhisattvas again with our thoughts, and visualizing, imagining around us, because that's where they are. Buddhas and the bodhisattvas are around us all throughout space in all the 10 directions, above you, below you, and so forth. And they are similarly, just like we just stated our intention to be the cause of happiness and the liberation from suffering, they are working endlessly, continuously for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we're surrounded by enlightened beings who are doing exactly this work that we are claiming to have the aspiration of. And so to them, to their effort and to the wonderful Dharma, we feel incredible depths of gratitude. And again, our reliance on a valid path to carry us through all the confusion and chaos in the universe. And so with total reliance, total appreciation for their existence in our lives, we recite the 7-limb prayer as a dedication to these marvelous beings. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed, I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to this great enlightenment. And picture that all of the enlightened beings to whom you have addressed this are pleased and happy and assured that you're not joking, that you really want to be part of this massive Mahayana movement to relieve all suffering throughout all the realms. And so out of gratitude, we seal this appreciation and dedication and intention with the mandala offering, which is our finest gift because we are, just like we do in life every day, we visualize that which we are participating in the creation of. We visualize right now, here in this moment, a purified universe with ourselves completely liberated, purified, and with completely pure altruistic intention, love, unbiased love and affection for all beings. That is our gift. Sajipaki Jakshin Meito Tramri Ravingji Nidekyen Padi Sangye Jindu Mikte Uwagi Rokunam Dakshin Chuparsho Idam Kururatna Mandalakam Niryatayami. And envision that this pure visualized offering is accepted and again revivifies the sentient being's determination to help us achieve this universally without bias to all sentient beings.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I do want to do one more prayer, Manjushri. Because what we're working on are definitely wisdom teachings, and Manjushri is the Buddha of wisdom. Okay, we'll just do this. Om Ara Sa Na Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana. Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Om Ara Patana Di. Sana di Oma Rapatana di Oma Rapatana di Oma Rapatana di Oma Rapatana di Oma Rapatana. Patana di Oma Rapatana 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 di Oma Rapatana. Rapatana di Okay, welcome everybody. Hi, Bino. Good to see you. We're going to start again with another an opening shamatha meditation practice. This is again, I think I'll talk. Claudia asked this last time, and I should preface the purpose of why we're doing this before we actually go into doing it. So the purpose of shamatha meditation is to develop a very focused and flexible mind that's known as single-pointed concentration. It is a calm and continuous state of consciousness that is characterized as being blissful, still, and extremely vivid. Shamatha is known as placement meditation. We can think of placement meditation as a powerful tool of the mind that enables it to maintain and hold in place a very clear, alert, and stable awareness that is free of distraction. It's kind of like what we're trying to do is create a very stable, alert environment of awareness, focused awareness, into which then we can analyze or investigate any object of our meditation. But the first, what we're doing now is basically developing this tool of the mind that can stay undistracted, very clear, very focused, very alert. So it's like creating the space for that special insight meditation, vipassana, to be very effective. So they liken shamatha to a very powerful microscope that you can then, you get that microscope focused and it's working, and then you can look or investigate in detail any object very, very clearly. And this is, so there are two parts of the meditation. And right now what we're working on is developing this tool of shamatha, this clear focus. So the first thing we do is we'll just go through the posture. So the first thing is you start from the bottom and go up. So you start with your legs. The legs are crossed. If that's uncomfortable for you in any way, you can just sit in a chair with your feet on the floor and try to keep. So that's the legs. The hands are in this position, this particular mudra, which is it's a union of compassion and wisdom. The right hand is resting in the left hand, and the two thumbs are touching. The left hand always represents wisdom. So for instance, if you're looking at a picture of the Buddha, you'll see that the Buddha is holding in his left hand the bowl filled with the Dharma wisdom. The right hand is the method, the compassionate methods that we use. And his right hand is showing that he has overcome all afflictive emotions, all cognitive obscurations, and in that way can be of help to all beings as an omniscient, enlightened being. So always remember that. Left, it represents wisdom. That's a feminine aspect. Right represents compassion. Then they call it the masculine aspect. It actually has nothing to, we both have these aspects within us, but this is how they refer to it.
Robina pointed out that with these two thumbs touching, it somehow helps to stabilize the subtle, the flow of prana or subtle energy through your channels. So it has also a practical.
Right. And that's what this posture is. A lot of this posture is about that. So the next is the back. So we want to keep our spine straight. You can think of it as like a stack of coins placed one on top of the other. And you don't want them to be, tipping or falling or out of place. You want to keep your back straight. This helps with the flow of the energy in the body. Then the shoulders and elbows. The shoulders are level. Elbows are slightly away from the body. The head and the neck are straight. The chin is slightly lowered or tucked in. The mouth, the face is relaxed and the tip of the tongue is touching the upper palate. And the eyes are barely opened and gazing past the tip of the nose. So that is the posture that we want to try and maintain. In general, they say don't let your posture become too tight. If you feel some tension or tightness, take a deep breath and then just release all that tightness and tension with the out breath. So what we're going to do now is we'll set the motivation, because it's very important to always set the motivation for what we're doing. And of course, we did that, when we went through these opening prayers. But as part of any meditation session you do, after you get yourself in position like this, set the motivation. And of course, what it is the altruistic intention of bodhicitta, the awakened heart and mind of compassion and wisdom. And that's the basis of the motivation for the practice of shamatha meditation. So we can think something like this. with this meditation practice, may I develop the capacity of my consciousness to maintain clear and focused awareness, that my stable compassion and wisdom may be awakened for the benefit of all beings. May I be blessed by my gurus, the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha with the means to accomplish this. So then with that motivation, what we're going to do today is a guided meditation that it's a breathing practice by Khentrul Rinpoche. And so this is coming directly from Khentrul Rinpoche, and we will go through this. So he has a preliminary practice that we do before we get into the breathing practice. And he says to take 3 long, deep breaths, and with each exhalation, imagine releasing all of your worries and concerns. So do this now. Just letting everything go. Don't worry, it'll be there when you get back, but just release it now. Now, consciously release all memories of the past and all plans for the future. Bring your awareness into this present moment. This is your time, and for the length of this session, nothing else matters. And this session will be quite brief. Like I said, it's guided, so I don't think we should really be wandering off too much. Allow your awareness to completely fill your body. Like a nebulous cloud that spans from the top of your head to the point where your body meets with the ground. At this point, simply become aware of the various tactile sensations within your body. Of these sensations, identify those sensations that you relate to the steady rhythm of your in and out breaths. You don't need to do anything to create the sensations. Simply observe what sensations naturally arise. See if you can maintain your awareness of one full cycle of breath. Observe how it feels when the air flows in. Observe how it feels when the inhalation stops and the air begins to flow out. Observe how it feels when all of the air is released. And observe how it feels as you wait for the next breath to arise. Spend a little bit of time becoming familiar with this process, observing the in, the turning around of the breath going out, and the breath coming back in. Now, use each out breath as an opportunity to further release all tensions in your body and mind. As you breathe out, allow yourself to become more and more relaxed, while at the same time remaining very clear and present. Using your faculty of introspection, check up every now and again to ensure that you are not slipping into a stupor or falling asleep. If you do find that you are getting dull, then brighten your mind by paying greater attention to the in-breath. When you are once again present and engaged, return to focusing on the out-breath, allowing yourself to become more and more relaxed while at the same time remaining very clear and present. And we'll do this a few more times, and that will bring us to the remainder of this very short meditation session. Ding. I don't have a little dinger. Um, um, as I was doing this, I did this a couple of times, of course, and I find what Khenpo Rinpoche has said about especially the out breath and becoming very relaxed and at the same time becoming more clear and focused. I could feel how helpful that was. What strikes me is that our whatever intention we have in our mind, we can put that intention on the breath, and we can direct it and make that we can make ourselves become more relaxed, more clear, more focused, simply by having that intention, that conscious intention to do that. And when we again think of why we're doing this, we're trying to create this space, very clear, focused, aware, alert space in which to precisely examine some of these very deep and profound topics that that are part of the wisdom path. And I found this to be a very good breathing exercise. And so Khenpo Rinpoche, in his book Sacred Truth, he has quite a number of these exercises. And next week, I think what we'll introduce is a little bit of Vipassana meditation into this. And it's simply about staying in the present moment. But the present moment is one of the most profound topics there is, because there is no other moment than the present ever, no matter what. Even if we're thinking about the past, we're thinking about the past in the present moment and pulling all of that, whatever emotions and attitudes we have about the past, we're pulling it right into the present moment and making it part of our continuum, our karma. So the present moment is a big topic, but it's very easy to start practicing that with the breath. and trying to hold that in that very clear, focused awareness. So I think that's what we'll do next week, because he does have one. Kento Rinpoche has one. I think the next one that he has in his book is about the present moment. Any comments about that process? Does it seem any questions or troubles or? Okay, it's pretty easy. I think, I mean, they say meditation is actually quite easy. The process is easy. We just need to figure out how not to get distracted or fall asleep, which is the main things. We just start following our conceptual thoughts, or we just check out.
I'm gonna just, like a firsthand experience with my knowing that I need to develop this skill. When I'm, in particular, let's say I'm thinking about something in the Dharma relay, something, let's say, about developing genuine compassion. And what I notice that even when I'm following the step-by-step ideas that are put forth as sort of a recipe to generate a feeling of compassion, that there's a certain level of distractedness that is preventing me from, like, fully 100% following the line of thinking and totally 100% penetrating the profundity of it. It could be, I mean, this is true for mundane things, but the analogy Venerable Robina has used, and I think this is kind of helpful for me. When, let's say, you were on a tightrope, walking a tightrope, the kind of incredible, you can't afford to, we all have done this to a certain degree, there's a certain kind of tension and relaxation, this sort of funny kind of way that we, but I've just noticed in my own study of Dharma is limited to, in terms of what I can actually absorb, because my mind is so habituated to jumping to tangential thoughts and or ideas, or the next thought, or the last thought. It's a real issue, and it may sound incredibly simple, but until a person has, if you haven't had the opportunity to really try to think deeply about some of these things, you may not notice the problem.
Oh, no, it's a huge problem, especially in our society right now. I mean, with our our little phones and things like TikTok and Twitter, and I mean, all of it. We are being trained in becoming distracted. It's like we're being trained to just jump from one thing to the other all the time, and it's very difficult for us to just reel it all in, have a very focused environment in which we can really penetrate the meaning of something, because we're just boom 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 boom
I
boom.
think we may need more practice, right? We keep practicing, trying to hit the sweet spot,
Yeah.
and there is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, again, my golf theory,
Yeah, you're
because
right.
the way the ball is made, there is a lot of technology that goes in the ball,
Mm.
and then the club's made, similarly with everything in there. And we learn golf with so many concepts and everything, and you hit the ball, yeah, you do hit it, and it does go, but there's still something missing. But sometimes you hit the ball in such a perfection, you don't even feel like the ball just touched the club, and just the hard ball like squeezes and then goes out, and you feel that perfect feeling that how did it happen? Now trying to repeat that is my,
Yeah.
challenge, but it is there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking. Even in meditation, there is a sweet spot that you
Sure.
can fall in, which gives you 100% benefit. But
Right.
when I meditate, I don't know, I'm trying and all that, but I think I just should keep trying, and then eventually try to get there where there is a sweet spot,
Mhm.
which is the true meditation that benefits you all the way, 100%. So I was thinking
Yeah.
with that image,
That that's interesting because I've heard other golfers say the same thing.
yeah,
And so it's a form, you could think of it as a form of meditation if you
Yes.
choose to use it that way. And then you can apply what you've learned
yeah.
with golf into an actual meditation session,
Mhm. And there's hundreds of videos we follow.
Yeah.
Go this way, that way, this and that, and we try everything. Sure, it works, but still there's this sweetness of that.
Right.
Everything comes in one spot. The ball, the club, the direction, physics. It's all about physics. And just you feel that thing that the ball, you feel like ball didn't touch the club. The ball just pumps out, and that hard ball of a golf you see, it just squeezes. There are slow motion videos.
Yeah.
It squeezes like a rubber ball. And that's what
Yeah.
we feel sometimes,
Right,
And
right, right.
that's same thing with meditation, I think.
Mhm.
You will feel one day that sweet spot, which just gives you all the clarity that I'm looking for.
There are physics involved in meditation too.
There
When they
is.
talk about the prana,
The postures
and
and pranas
all
and
of that.
energy, everything has to line up. But
Mhm.
so I guess my point is to keep trying
Mhm.
with everything we know we have in disposal, and I guess we should keep trying.
Yeah. What I would suggest actually is we could just do just like we did today. Each day, every morning, you wouldn't have to take more than 3 or 4 minutes, really.
Mhm.
Just practice that. Just practice that and get
Practice.
used to it. Get habituated to this. This will be in the study guide. It'll be on the video. Just get habituated to that. It's quite easy. But the more the body and the mind and the awareness gets comfortable with that and understands that, I think the deeper you can actually go to the point where you would actually start feeling some of the prana. Things would begin to line up like the ball squeezing, and you would start to hit that soft spot, or sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anything else about meditation for now? All right. Well, then we shall move on into the two truths. And I'll start with something His Holiness the Dalai Lama has written about in is a new set of books that he and Thupten Chodron worked on together, and they cover there are 9 volumes or something, and they cover the whole Mahayana Buddhist path, and this is in a book that was on emptiness, and he's talking about the ultimate truth of emptiness. So I will read this. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that the ultimate truth of emptiness is indescribable. It cannot be articulated by language. However, he says emptiness is not non-existent. It exists, and it is established through what is called yogic direct perception. And the more you read Dharma, the more this term is going to come up, especially when you're reading about things like the two truths or emptiness. You'll hear this term yogic direct perception. What that is it's the non-mistaken, non-conceptual mind that directly realizes emptiness, which arises in dependence on the union of shamatha and vipassana. So the actual meditation practices that we are practicing and studying right now, the union of those, when those are combined, you become quite proficient, like these yogis who are years in the cave meditating. You have what is called a direct perception of emptiness. So this is the method that they use. This is the method to get to this. So this is what we're dipping our toes in this right now. And I think, we just take, Ravina says all the time, just take the long view. Don't worry about, oh, I have to do it in, I don't know, 1 year,
This
2 years,
lifetime.
this lifetime even. The point is to develop the habit. And that habit we will take with us. That habit will become part of who we are. And the more we practice, even if it's like 3 or 4 minutes a day, like what we just did this morning, it will make a difference, and it will grow, and we will become habituated to it, and we will see progress. So I'll go on now with what His Holiness says. So you understand that yogic direct perception is the wisdom of meditative equipoise that directly realizes and non-conceptually realizes emptiness. This kind of wisdom, His Holiness says, is the only mind that can realize emptiness exactly as it is. The wisdom mind that realizes emptiness is itself empty of inherent existence. So that wisdom mind directly knows its own ultimate truth nature. It directly knows its own ultimate truth nature non-conceptually. Its own emptiness of inherent existence, in other words, the mind's own emptiness of inherent existence. It is a personal, direct experience of reality, and its own emptiness is the object of that experience. So in other words, if you're talking about shamatha and vipassana, what a yogic directed perception, what occurs is you've created this secure environment of focused awareness in which to have a very clear and precise focus on a particular topic, which would be emptiness. And what it is it's the emptiness of one's own consciousness that the yogi realizes. So this is where these two types of meditation are headed. This is where the purpose, what it's leading us towards, is this direct realization of emptiness.
And
In this realization, there is no appearance of a subject, the mind of wisdom, that realizes an object, emptiness. Instead, subject and object are experienced as undifferentiated, like pure water poured into pure water. So in other words, the emptiness of the consciousness itself, the consciousness and the emptiness, there is no differentiation between them. They are like one thing, the subject and the object. The object of your meditation becomes you, becomes what you are. And that's the direct realization, where the subject and object sort of merge. Is that kind of, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and this is an unusual.
the words are clear.
The words are clear, right? It's unusual. It's not the way we normally talk about things. His Holiness says, as His Holiness says, words and concepts are insufficient approximations of the experience of realizing emptiness. Emptiness, as it is experienced directly, cannot be fully known or understood by words or concepts, no matter how many statements are made about it or how much it is described. He says it goes beyond being an object of terms and the conceptual mind. Words are unable to accurately express it, nor can a conceptual consciousness realize it exactly as it is. Good news, though. He says, even though that's so, in order to have this experience, we have to start by learning the words. We have to start by learning the concepts. We have to learn the words and the concepts that refute inherent existence. And those words and concepts that establish emptiness, that emptiness is so. We follow, what we do then, what he says is we follow those 3 steps to understanding that we mentioned in the last session, which are first, you listen to teachings, or you study teachings, or you discuss the teachings. It's a process of learning, or taking that information in. They call it listening, but it can be reading and discussing as well. And you listen to authentic Buddhist scriptures and you learn them. And then we generate the conceptual understanding that arises from listening and studying. So that's the first step. And that is what we have been doing, or trying to do. The second step is we contemplate what we've listened to. We reflect upon what we've learned, what we've
think
heard.
about it.
We think about it. In other words, we think about it. We don't just, let it go in one ear and out the other and go back to, well, what's X? Oh, I got to see what's, Elon Musk is up to. You think about what we've been talking
That's a
about.
good idea.
Yeah, oh yeah, wait a minute, well, let's see what he's up to. See what it, I mean, we're so distracted, it's unbelievable, it's like, this world, okay, So what we do is when we think about these teachings and we gain some wisdom that comes from contemplation and reflection, what that does is it clears away all the doubts about the lack of inherent existence, and we come to an inferential conclusion that emptiness must be so. What we sort of do is we kind of logic it out with our concepts, with our minds, with information, and we can inferentially see. But this actually makes sense, the way they're talking about it, but we have to hear the words first, we have to contemplate it, and then we have to come to this inferential recognition that emptiness is so. Then we combine this, we go to the third step, and what we do is we combine the inferential conclusion that we come to, the conceptual inferential conclusion, we combine it with meditation. Shamatha and vipassana, and that is the third step to understanding. So it's basically, His Holiness is reinforcing what we talked about last week, those three steps. You listen, you contemplate, you meditate.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really have a problem with, and I'm starting to change my habit. You know, when you sit down to read, you tend to want to like read the whole chapter. Or, you're just sort of like in a hurry to consume the information.
Yes.
And I remember Geshe Doctor said it, and I really didn't years ago. He said, read a couple of sentences and then put the book down and think about it. And I've just recently, really recently, just started like doing what he said. And it goes against the grain because like I want to read the whole chapter. I want to read all the 7 points in this 7-point mind training, for example.
Well, one way you could do that as an overview, right? And then you go back. And I remember, Confucius, right? Geshe Draka would pantomime it. He'd say, and then go. So he was actually showing us what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I do like to, myself personally, I do like to read a whole whatever and see if I can get an overview, And honestly, some of these books on the Two Truths, not even some of them, all of them. You try and read it. I mean, Kavita and I've been reading in bed, right? And I just say, I do not know what it's saying. So you just go over it again, you do it again, and finally it begins to sort of sound like fog lifting. That's what it's like. And your mind sort of focuses a little more. And then you go to a particular thing that is a particular problem you're having with, and you really look at that, you really study it, you look at what the writings are saying, the various teachers are saying, and you can get closer and closer to coming to an understanding of what's being said. It's not a quick process.
I don't know, this is my current opinion, is this, it's not like they don't use big words or complicated terms, it's that they write very densely constructed sentences that can only be interpreted correctly. So you have to read it and reread it because there's such a dense sentence structure that because they're trying to guarantee that you don't assume the wrong thing. It's my opinion.
What we're trying to do here, what I'm trying to do here is do that sort of research first, come to some kind of conclusion, and then put it into words or express it in some way that I feel we can all maybe understand it. And this is why the questions that you all raise are so important, and the discussions that we have are important, because there's no way to know otherwise if any of this is clicking.
The other thing of the benefit of reading the dense material yourself, in my opinion, one of them is the sentence structure is dense, so you can't misinterpret. The other thing, I think it is deliberate because in the process of reading and rereading, in effect, you're doing contemplation. It forces you to contemplate. And so there is value, and I don't think it's a good idea, frankly, to totally rely on Christopher's
Oh, no.
spoon feeding us.
No.
Mm.
But
And I'll
the
put it
thing-
that way, because I lived with him a long time. We used to have a music ensemble.
Oh, well, let's
And
not
he
go too
has the
far off.
habit of trying so hard to spoon feed so that we don't have to work so hard, and in the end, we have to do the work.
Right, and what I have found from rereading something is the mind becomes less distracted. What happens is we will hit some of these dense words or these words that it's just like, I don't understand it, and our mind goes off, it gets distracted. So when we start rereading, we become more focused. This is what I've noticed.
Right.
Anyway, now we're going to oh, His Holiness also says, if our meditation practice is motivated by bodhicitta, that awakening heart and mind of a bodhisattva, that we begin the pathways of consciousness. Remember, we talked about the 5 paths and the 10 bhumis. We begin those pathways of consciousness that will ultimately lead to the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the motivation is extremely important for these meditation practices. Now we're going to revisit these Buddhist tenets again, not in huge detail, and I don't think we'll ever do it in huge detail. We need a special teacher for that. But this is what I went over last time was Geshe Tashi Tsering's very concise overview of the main points of the 4 schools. Now what I'm going to read to you is Khentrul Rinpoche's slightly more detailed overview of the 4 schools, but still nothing like if you were to truly take a course on the tenets, the tenets, which we did with Geshe Drapa, and all of us were blubbering idiots walking around in circles going, I don't like that, I don't get it. But you know, he did his best, he really did. All right, so while all 4 schools of Buddhist tenets agree on the premise of the 2 truths, relative truth, ultimate truth, they disagree on which phenomena belong to the category of relative truth and which belong to the category of ultimate truth. Proponents of the first school, the Great Exposition School, is called Vaibhashika, means Great Exposition. And the second school, the Sutra school, is called Sautrantika, which means sutra. They belong to the Theravada. Sometimes in the past it's been referred to as Hinayana, which means lesser path, but that's not the right way to look at it. Theravada is, you could just say it's the foundational path of Buddhism, Theravada. And so Vaibhashika and Sautrantika belong to that Theravada foundational path of Buddhism. The proponents of the mind-only school, which is Chittamatra, remember Chitta as in bodhicitta, it means heart and it means mind. So mind-only school, the proponents of that and the proponents of the Madhyamaka or middle way school, in the middle between absolutism and nihilism, that's the middle way. They belong to the Mahayana, which means great vehicle. So there are 2 vehicles here. We have the Theravada, the Mahayana. The 2 less subtle schools, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, belong to the Theravada, and the 2 more subtle schools belong, Chittamatra and Madhyamaka, belong to the Mahayana. So that's a clear distinction to be made, and we need to understand that. And it's important to understand all of them, otherwise we won't understand the evolution of how this occurred, and we will miss the meaning of some of the points. Okay, so what follows now is Khentrul Rinpoche's brief summary of each school. The Great Exposition School, Vaibhashika. Practitioners of the Vaibhashika school believe that phenomena like the mind and its various functions, the material world of objects made up of subtle particles, and unconditioned phenomena such as space and time, all substantially and truly exist. So the mind, its functions, the material world of objects made up of particles, and unconditioned phenomena such as unconditioned space and time, these things all substantially, truly exist, according to this school. At the same time, they believe the coarse objects that arise due to the coming together of all of these elements, the mind, the particles, space, and time, the coarse objects that arise due to the coming together of these elements, which we label with names such as, car, chair, book, dog, person, those, they say, are not real. They are not substantially existent. For example, when the sense faculty of an eye encounters an object, it gives rise to a sensory awareness, and all these aspects, all those aspects are considered to be ultimate truth. Ultimate truth. There is actually an I consciousness. There is actually, there is something out there, made of material particles, these partless subatomic particles. There's something out there. However, what they're saying is the recognition that what is arising in the mind is, say, an apple. We label it an apple. That is a relative truth. The label apple they are saying, is a mere imputation of the mind. Is that clear? Because it wasn't to me at first. I had to read that and sort of, do a little rewording so that I could understand it clearly, So it's basically our labeling and imputing things as being this and that. And they're saying what it really is a bunch of particles.
Yeah.
And we're just saying that it's a book.
Mhm.
And we know this is a pretty profound topic right there. It's not a book from its own side. So this is Vaibhashika. This is the first school. And that, to me, I didn't realize how profound that was until a couple of days ago. All right. So if there are no questions or discussions, we'll move on to the next.
They're just really, yeah, okay.
The next of the Theravada.
What is imputed?
Imputed.
That's a joke.
The names and labels we give to things.
Things, yeah.
The
I
names.
just
that we call them.
remember in our class, somebody went,
What's imputed?
What's
It
imputed?
was like the back of the room. What's imputed? We don't even know the terms, right? So it's yeah, I don't know. I admire the monks, their steadfastness, and their willingness to keep coming and to teach and to just, no matter what it takes. They're very, very kind in that way.
I just can't even imagine
Yeah.
why they kept doing it.
So now we're going to move on to the Sautrantika, the Sutra school. This is the second of the foundational vehicle schools. The Sutra school refines the understanding of the Vaibhashika view. This school's proponents recognize that unconditioned phenomena like space and time and the perception of a substantially existing mental or physical continuum, they say those are all mere imputations. They don't say that they, truly substantially exist. They recognize that unconditioned phenomena such as space and time and the perception of a substantially existing mental or physical continuum all are mere imputations and should be considered relative truths. Whereas Vaibhashika will say space and time, they are
Real,
they're real.
they're ultimate.
Yeah. The Sautrantikas hold that the only things that are truly existent are minute, partless particles. That's one, and then there's another, and instantaneous moments of consciousness. Not a continuum of consciousness, but the instantaneous moment to moment. Those instantaneous moments of consciousness they truly exist, as well as partless particles. These minute partless subatomic type of particles.
So in other words, there is a findable smallest moment of time and a findable.
Right, they can go down to, they can go down to the smallest particle that has no parts, and they say that
Okay.
is, that's
Okay,
really.
they posit that those
Right.
two things.
And the very smallest moment of consciousness that exists.
Okay,
Other than these, they say, the Satratika say, the sense faculties, the continuum of consciousness, and the objects of consciousness are all relative truths, imputed onto the interdependent configuration of material particles being perceived by a moment of consciousness. It's crazy. I mean, what's crazy to me is that thousands of years ago, these yogis, these minds were getting to this level of what we would now call subatomic particles, or even like, they're getting just like getting down to particles of light, it blows my mind, the level of sophistication here, that we would think that's impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any questions about those two? Okay, okay. Now we go to the two that are of the Mahayana vehicle, the mind-only school and the middle way Madhyamaka school. So first we go to mind-only Chittamatra. And some of this may be familiar because we've talked a bit about it. We've over the classes, even in this the study of Precious Garland, but definitely we talked about it with Shantideva. According to this school, everything that appears to the mind is appearing in the mind itself, like the images in a dream. They say that nothing can be established as truly existent outside the sphere of the mind's experience. This means that since we can only ever experience the physical world as appearances in the mind, then there is no basis to claim the existence of the world as something other than the mind. Does this make sense? Do we need to unpack it at all? Because when we would say, "Oh, I can feel this cup. This is it's solid. I feel it." And what they're saying is that this is called sense, it's a sense consciousness. There's a sense faculty that has a consciousness, and it's the consciousness that is actually experiencing the solidity or the hardness of the cup and the softness of the fingers as they push against it. It's the mind, the consciousness that is experiencing it, not the fingers and not the cup. Does that, you can get to the subtlety of where they're getting here with this, which is really quite subtle from our point of view, where we take everything to be exactly the way it appears to us. Therefore, objective appearances, that such as objects being perceived by the eye sense power, and then the subjective experience of visual consciousness, that's a very subjective experience that's going on. Our visual awareness of the eye, what the eye is picking up. That's occurring in our partially it's in our brain, but it's in our consciousness itself. The consciousness pervades the brain. The consciousness pervades all of it. So they're saying that's where it's existing. And so because it cannot actually be proved by any other source other than the consciousness itself, then they say you can't prove that it's outside the consciousness. It's a very profound view that the Chittamatras have. So they say objective appearances and the subjective experiences of those appearances are both relative truths because they are mere imputations of the mind. What they do say is the ordinary mind, the consciousness itself, the ordinary consciousness itself, the awareness, you would say, that is able to rest in a non-dual awareness of the inseparability of subject and object, that they consider to be the ultimate truth. The awareness itself that is breaks down this idea of subject and object, and realizes that the subject and object are inseparable. They say that awareness, that exists, that's ultimate truth. They call that particular awareness, it's translated often as mind basis of all, is how it's put in some of the books on the tenets. Mind basis of all. That's what the Chittamatrans say is ultimate truth, and everything else is relative truth. Was that kind of clear? You wouldn't believe how unclear this can be.
With Chittamatra, so what is their view about the substantiality of this mind basis of all? I mean, and
They say
I think
it
it's a fixed thing.
truly exists. It is, yeah, they think they see it as an inherently existing thing. It exists from its own side. It truly exists, that mind basis of all. And this is why the Madhyamikas, particularly the Prasangika Madhyamikas, goes even more subtle than that. Yeah. Right. And also the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, when they're talking about partless particles and stuff like that, they're saying those truly inherently exist. When we're saying truly exist, really exist, what it means is inherently exist. That's ultimate truth to them. That's the ultimate truth, that it inherently, those particular things inherently exist. Everything else doesn't. They're just imputations of the mind. And this is why the Madhyamaka, and particularly the Prasangika Madhyamika, go to the most subtle level. So we're going to go now to the middle way school, the Madhyamaka. This school is considered to hold, and remember, this is Khentrul Rinpoche. Yeah. This school is considered to hold the most subtle view of all Buddhist schools of thought. Within this school, there are two main sub-schools, the Svatantrika Madhyamikas and the Prasangika Madhyamikas. The interpretations of these two sub-schools are based on the two Mahayana lineages that came through Nagarjuna and Asanga. Both of these lineages, both of these sub-schools, agree that the Chittamatra assertions of a truly existent, non-dual, ordinary consciousness is incorrect. In other words, they both agree that the Chittamatra is saying that the mind, the consciousness that is the basis of all, truly inherently exists. They both say, nuh-uh, that's not correct. It can't be correct. And what they're saying is that such a consciousness is still grasping onto a very subtle form of inherent subjectivity. And that makes sense to me. You grab, all right, okay, everything else can't exist, but inherently, the subject, the mind that I am, that does exist. That exists. It's inherent.
It's kind of close to Chittamatra in that way.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying, that Chittamatra is. And they're refuting that. Those two schools both say that's not so.
Okay.
They're both saying that's not so. It doesn't inherently exist.
Okay.
Right. That's okay. Okay. They say that's a relative truth. They both of these sub-schools, though, they do agree that all phenomena perceived by the mind, perceived by the consciousness, are mere imputations. They are relative truths and that are completely empty of inherent existence. Where they disagree the Svatantrikas disagree with the Prasangikas. Where they disagree is on the nature of ultimate truth. And I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time on this, and I have in the past. And this is a disagreement which is far too subtle for us to go into here right now. It just, but trust me, it is far too subtle. We would spend all this session and probably the next session talking about it. For now, it will have to suffice to say, and I will say, Khenpo Rinpoche did not get into it. He said, "I'll get into it in another book." Is what he said. For now, it will have to suffice to say that the Prasangika view espoused by Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and Tsongkhapa is considered to be the highest and most subtle in its consequential logic. Consequential logic means because of this, this must be so. It is a kind of inferential logic.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, like that. That's consequential logic. Where there's a consequence, there's some cause of it. So, according to the Prasangika view, the nature of ultimate truth is the absence or emptiness of inherent self-existence of all phenomena, including the consciousness, including the mind. I'll just give you a very brief, the way the Svatantrikas put it is they'll say, well, 50% of it comes from the object and 50% of the reality comes from the mind. And the Prasangikas, through consequential logic, blow that to pieces. So, but we're not going to get into all of that. Now, all right, so any big standout questions about any of those four schools? Basically, it takes familiarizing.
So up through Chittamatra, so the first three schools would basically say
There is
you
some,
have a stable, actual, inherently existing consciousness. They may talk about it in different words, but in general.
well, the others will say those particles actually.
I know, I'm just saying, I'm just asking about this one feature.
Yeah.
So they would say you have,
Something.
like a soul or an Atman or a tangible or a findable something that is findable.
Yes.
And
yes.
the characteristic of Prasangika, the highest, the most subtle,
Most subtle.
when they examine this supposed findable consciousness, when they examine it, they can't, through their line of logic, they do not find anything that is like that.
Right.
They find similarly that it is a continuously dependent arising.
Right. Moment to moment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to get into.
Can I just make a comment? I mean, what I find interesting is that in the Western world, it hasn't been sort of until the 18th century when these ideas came up. I mean, Immanuel Kant in his Critique of Pure Reason, that was sort of the first time when in the West people thought about it, maybe there is no objective reality.
Yeah, this is why it stuns me that, and obviously it has to do with this particular type of meditation that these yogis were doing, that they were plumbing the depths of or reality, I guess you'd say, and it's just incredible to hear them talk about these kinds of things, which are so mind-bending for us still. All right, now we're getting into the relationship between the two truths. Oh, I hope we can cover it. Okay, well, we don't, it's fine. Initially, it seems that that relative truth and ultimate truth are two completely unrelated things, that relative truth must somehow be mistaken in some way, and ultimate truth must be, the correct thing. But that isn't so, and we should sort of wipe that off of our minds. understanding the relationship between the two truths is essential for us to understand the subtle line between illusion and reality. According to the Madhyamaka proponents, the relationship of the two truths couldn't be closer. For any phenomenon, its relative truth and ultimate truth represent different aspects of that phenomenon. For instance, with the book, the object, the book itself is the relative truth, and the absence of inherent existence of the book is its ultimate truth. And every object is the same way. It's the same way. So what we're talking about here is something that they call one entity, different isolates. Do you remember when Geshe Dragpa first talked about this? It was again, what's an isolate? It just, all the terminology, So one entity, different isolates. In the Buddhist teachings on the two truths, it is stated that the two truths are one entity, but different isolates. Geshe Tashi Tsering explains that for any given phenomenon, we can examine either of the two natures, relative or ultimate, and arrive at the conclusion that they are both the same entity. For instance, you go back to the book. Conventionally, the book exists. This is a book. Ultimately, it is empty of inherent existence. Then the same is said for this and everything else.
When you, so when you say the words, the book is empty of inherent existence, what you're saying is that it is a moment by moment dependent arising of the energetic particles that are creating the appearance that's perpetually changing and modifying, and the consciousness observing it is similarly back and back and back into infinitum.
The consciousness is projecting its own
Well, I'm
things on
saying
us,
the
yeah.
consciousness itself is also
It's also-
just a moment by moment
Right.
arising phenomenon.
It's
and
all-
a flash in the pan.
It's all a big soup of arising phenomena, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. That has this appearance of being very substantially existent.
Because we have the habit of seeing it.
Because if you recall, when we talked several sessions earlier, it arose from this idea, we have these aggregates, all of a sudden, well, this must be mine. Out of that arose the sense of I, me, mine, and then that I became, we concretized it. We say, yes, it inherently exists, and it causes all the problems, causes all of our grasping and suffering and disappointment. And this is why it's important to study all of this, because of suffering. That's the whole point. Because we're confused, and it causes us to suffer. That is the point. All right, we're going on. For example, a book exists, therefore it must either be a conventional truth or an ultimate truth. But a book has both natures. This is not the same as saying it is both natures. The existence of the book is the book's conventional truth nature. But it has another nature, and that is its ultimate truth nature. In other words, ultimate truth is not denying conventional truth at all. It's saying things do exist. Things conventionally exist, and it cannot be denied. But the nature of these things that exist is that the ultimate nature of them is that they are completely dependently arising, moment to moment to moment, even down to the most subtle particles are constantly shifting and moving and changing. So that you can't concretize it, and neither can you concretize ultimate truth either. Ultimate truth is just this dependently arising nature. The book's relative and ultimate truths are one entity in that it is the same object analyzed in different ways. In other words, the basis of analysis is the same, the book, but the mode of analysis is different. Our conventional mind apprehends the conventional truth nature of the book, but our ultimate mind apprehends the book's lack of inherent self-existence, which is the book's ultimate truth nature. Using the same base, the book, the only difference is the conclusion. Without the base, without the book or whatever it may be, there is no way to posit either conventional or ultimate truth. If there was nothing at all, we couldn't posit those two truths. Without the same base, the book, there is no conventionally existing book, and there is no ultimate nature, dependently arising empty nature of the book.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, the book exists. It exists conventionally, and it has an ultimate nature that is empty of inherent existence. It's not saying it doesn't exist. It's empty of inherent existence. It's not solid and substantial the way it appears to us, the way we think about it. Remember that Tensor Tegchok, who wrote the commentary for Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, he said, there is nothing but conventional existence. That's it, conventional existence. Even enlightened beings have a conventional existence. Everything, its ultimate nature is empty of inherent existence, but things do conventionally exist. It is not like, this is not like an illusion. It's only illusion-like in that we think it is substantially inherently existent, and it's not. It's empty of that. It's completely it's impermanent. It changes all the time, and everything we are aware of changes all the time, and that's because various causes and conditions are constantly shifting and moving and changing. The two truths are also the same entity in that they have the same duration. The conventional truth and ultimate truth of any given phenomenon arise, abide, and disintegrate at the same time. So in other words, you can't say, this book came into existence, and then later on, the ultimate truth of it came into existence. And when this book goes out of existence, but the ultimate truth will still remain. No, they arise together at the same time, and they disintegrate together at the same time. Each phenomenon, each base has the conventional existence and the ultimate nature of what it is. Yeah.
I guess the reason we have to hammer this home so much is because we're incredibly habituated to
Seeing it the opposite way.
taking in all the sensory input and assuming that it's feeding us.
We assume that it
Yeah.
actually inherently exists, and we get really upset when
The
it's,
senses are designed in a way,
yeah,
if you will,
right.
or we chose them.
Or we just,
in order to feed ourselves the
Yeah.
appearance of an inherent.
I think what they say is because we developed this primordial misunderstanding that the I, because of the aggregates that existed, whatever they may have been, I don't know, but then a sense of, well, these must be mine, and then this I arose, which is a mental construct, but we believe that the I truly exists, and so this is why we get upset when things change or they don't happen the way we want them to happen, or and it's what causes all of the problems that we have, is because we just can't accept that things don't inherently exist and that they shouldn't be a particular way.
Yeah.
Which is why looking at the way all the various species see different things in a completely different way helps us to realize, oh, things don't actually, it's not all the same. It's not all the way I'm seeing it. It's not all the way I feel about it. You know, I itself is not what I think it is. So it's really a mind expanding philosophy.
There's like, when you think about your, when I think about the appearance of the quote world problems, or the problems in the world. There's one level of reaction in terms of addressing it. One level that we want to respond with kindness, just in the immediacy of the moment, the friend had lost their job and need a place to stay, or the dog got,
Sure.
as whatever, anything, any creature or situation. And so, it's nice that we're wired to want to respond in the moment. Yet, one has to also realize that if one stays in that mode of merely addressing the arising problems once they reach the surface of appearance, that appearing problems, the quote suffering, will continuously keep arising. So that's why this examination is, I think, as I'm listening, I'm thinking this is so important, because this is what ultimately we, all sentient beings, have to find for themselves, how to connect with the underlying misunderstanding of things, because that's where untangling the knots of these seemingly unsolvable problems. Yes, we want to respond with kindness, but we know, let's look at the world, we know. I mean, we were talking about Mother Teresa. She died going, I feel like I've wasted my life. I've helped all these people with leprosy and poverty and hunger and la la la, and there's still more and more and more. So it's like, as Buddhist practitioners, we're sort of choosing to respond to the appearing world, but we know it's sort of like catching the babies falling out of the sky. You got to eventually find out, why are these babies falling from the sky?
Yeah.
You can't
And get
just
to the
keep-
root.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do, is to get to the root of it. Also, in the Buddha's wisdom, I mean, he mentioned the first thing he talked about was suffering, to make it very clear that that's the point of the Buddha's teachings, is that we can eliminate the suffering within ourselves. That's what we can do, and then we help others to do the same. And it is one person at a time, one being at a time.
One cat at a time.
One cat at a time, one dog at a time. Yeah.
Christopher,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? I have a couple of comments and maybe a question. So you started today's lesson with some text from His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Mhm.
And if I remember the text, it basically said that we don't have the appropriate language to describe some of the concepts we're trying to understand and learn about. And that, in fact, the only way to, and I'm going to use the word believe, but use any word you'd like to insert there, is through some sort of experiential activity. That you can't logic it out to the extent that it becomes factual. It really has to be experiential. So that's the first observation. Now, we obviously say we study this and we do the best we can with language to try to describe it. But at the end of the day, you're training your mind to get to a point in some way, shape, or fashion that you either understand or agree with the teachings of the Buddha and therefore agree that that is correct. Now, maybe so when I think about that process, I think, well, okay, I'll take a simple situation where somebody says this particular action, this particular activity, this particular thing is something that's good, and somebody else says it's bad. Now, both of those are beliefs that different individuals have and have arrived at in some way, potentially even not logically, but experientially. So I still am struggling personally with this experiential approach to understanding, emptiness, because if one can convince oneself in one's mind that a particular action, thing, item is good versus bad, it's just you've convinced your mind to do that. That's the first comment I have. The second thing is, I think, again, I want to think you've done a great job. You've done a great job, and I don't know if it's on the website. You had a chart at one point that had all of these differences between different schools and what they believe and what they don't believe. And so if that's not on the website somewhere, I got a copy of it. I think it would be very helpful to people to take a look at that, because it's really well put together. So those are my two comments. The question I have, or what I'm thinking about now, as you're talking about relative truth and ultimate truth, dependent arising, causes and conditions. My question is dependent arising and causes and conditions a completely random phenomenon, or if it's not a completely random phenomenon, then is there some way that dependent arising and specific causes and conditions are created that leads to a particular moment to moment outcome, so to speak? So you use the book, for example. The book is both, relative as well as ultimate. So, and it's both, but it's still for, whatever, 50, 100 years, however long the book physically exists, it still is a book, yet somehow that is dependently arising moment to moment, second to second, whatever you want to say, over and over and over again, if I understand what you were saying. So that got me to thinking about, well, is that still a random thing, or is it there's some non-randomness in that dependent arising? And if there's a non-randomness in the dependent arising, what does that mean for how much input, or what kind of input we or any other sentient being might have over that whole dependent arising process? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And we have a role. What the Buddha would say is that dependent arising just is the nature of reality. That's what it is.
I just want to.
Is everything is
interrupt, because
okay.
we have to include the law of causality.
Right.
Dependent arising is another way of talking about the law of causality. So there's a chain of causes and effects, causes and consequences.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Right.
that is an aspect of your question, Brian, because nothing is random.
Yeah.
There is a chain reaction of causes and effects
Mhm.
that go back and back literally into infinity. And we also we tend to objectify that we're talking about some external world, and we have to remember similarly, karma, the chain of causes and consequences, or cause and effect,
Action and result.
applies to our consciousness as well, or, at the same time. So what you are trying to point to is as if it is not possible for there to be any phenomena without it being subject to causes and conditions.
All right, let me
Okay, so
continue, okay? Let me continue. So this process of constantly dependent arising, there's no way to stop it, in other words. It will not be stopped. So either we're going to generate causes that are going to be beneficial, and we'll experience those beneficial results, because that's how karma works, cause and effect. Or we are going to generate causes that are not beneficial and will generate suffering and afflictions and confusion. That's where we Each one of us has a personal role in all of this, but there is no way to stop what is this nature of reality that is constantly transforming. It's constantly moving. It's constantly moment to moment transforming. So in order for us to work with that and to have an experience that's not suffering, which is the Buddha's whole point, is that we have to then generate the causes and conditions moment to moment in our own consciousness and in our own actions, body, speech, and mind, that will not create suffering, but that'll actually be beneficial, that will be clear up confusion, remove ignorance. This is what each one of us wants to do. If we want, number one, to start, we can only do this for ourselves. We can help others do that for themselves as well. But all the suffering, all the problems we see in the world arise due to people's actions, or I shouldn't say people, all beings' actions of based on thinking that they, they're thinking that things inherently exist, that they're not this very fluid thing. And so that they just want to destroy basically what's in their way, what they don't like. And this causes huge suffering and tremendous negative karma and it just keeps going over and over.
This also applies to objects, if you want to use the word object, because throughout all the cosmos in the universe, there's no star, there's no galaxy, there's no, oops, where did it come from?
That doesn't have a cause.
Everything.
This has a cause. Now, what we can say is, I very highly doubt that this book suffers at all. I mean, that's just my logic. Our logic would say this book is not suffering. So the problem is with conscious beings that have minds. And the beings that have minds, we're confused about the nature of reality and what causes suffering and what causes happiness. And that's the whole Buddha's point, the whole point of this path, to wake up. But yes, there is something each one of us can do. But that the nature of what reality is, there's no way to stop it. We can't stop dependent arising. It's going to occur regardless of what we do. So we might as well create the causes and conditions for beneficial experiences, happy experiences that don't have to do with suffering, which is why the Buddha emphasizes so much as the first practice ethics. And in particular, the kind of ethics that he laid out, these 10 actions, to avoid and 10 actions to engage in. That gets us started in the right direction. Yeah, I guess, okay. Is that good? Okay. You want to go ahead and do final prayers?
We're just gonna do the Jiangchu,
Okay.
wherever it is. Dedicating the first one.
Yeah.
And then the last one. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born within us not decrease, but increase forevermore. Sorry, I'm not reading it. And similarly, may the view of emptiness, not yet born in us, arise and grow. And may that born in us and other sentient beings have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Oh, do you want to leave it there?
No.
Okay.
Final. In all my lives, may I not be separated from true lamas and enjoy the splendor of Dharma, fully perfecting the virtues of the levels and paths. May I speedily attain the state of Vajradhara.
Yeah. I am so happy that we are all doing this, that we all want to do this. I think it's wonderful, and I'm very energized and inspired to keep going, because I think we can make huge progress and help one another do so. Yeah.
And we are very grateful for you
Thank you. And get you an
And
email,
we-
all the
There's no one
teachers.
else to do.
What else is there to do? I mean, really, if you think about it. What, okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Christopher.
We'll see you next
Thank
time
you.
and your study guide will be in the mail. Okay.
Yep.
Stop.
How you
recording.
guys doing?